So welcome back, everybody. I'm here with the wonderful Joy Villa. It's great to have you in the studio today.
Thank you, Ben.
So for the benefit maybe of our audience out here in Ireland who might not have heard of you, if you could just give kind of a brief introduction to yourself.
Sure. So I'm a singer-songwriter. I've toured 36 countries. This is my 36th country I've been to. And I'm notoriously pro-life, pro-religious freedom, pro-Trump. I campaigned for President Trump in both elections. And I'm pro-medical freedom as well. So I'm a controversial figure, but I'm an artist, I'm a musician, and I just speak my mind, you know?
Now, you said a lot of controversial stuff just there. You're obviously a woman of color, as they say now in the modern parlance.
Right. Please use my pronouns
Of
correctly.
course, absolutely.
You didn't even ask me, Ben.
I didn't, actually. That was a big mistake on my part. I'm gonna get in serious trouble now.
You're gonna get canceled.
So, you're a woman of color, and you say you're pro-Trump, but every time I turn on the television, I'm told by a man in a suit on the news that Trump is the reincarnation of Hitler, he's the most racist man to ever live, so right. I'm just a little bit confused, and I'm wondering if you could kind of help me understand this.
Sure. So, it's funny because I called myself a feminist, and I actually wrote a book called Kick-Ass Conservative, and it's all about my story, and it's on sale now if anyone wants to buy it. And basically, it tells the story of how I'm in the music industry, right? So I'm an actress as well. I produce films. So I'm in a scene. I lived in Hollywood where it's extremely liberal, so closed-minded. So you can't think outside the box. You know, you talk about diversity, there is no diversity of thought. We may look different nowadays, but you cannot think differently. So I came from that background and wanting to sort of please everyone and be a part of this team, be a part of this group. And then Trump came on the scene. And everyone told me he was evil, just like you said, those things, those descriptives. And I believed it in 2016 until I looked at what he said. And I realized he sounded a lot like my dad. Conservative, God-fearing, wanted less taxes, pro-life, pro-family, pro-military, pro-American exceptionalism, which I believe every country has a right to have their exceptionalist views, right? Like, should be Irish exceptionalism, like Ireland above everyone else. It should be that way if you're an Irish citizen. It shouldn't be, let illegal immigrants come in and take everything, and then you have to pay taxes to pay for this and support. Anyways, all of these things that are now part of woke culture were really, really rearing up and developing in 2016. And I had to make a decision. I had to make a choice. Not vote with my genitals, not vote with my color, which is a mix of a lot of different things, but vote with my values. And so I voted for President Trump, and I wore a Trump dress to the Grammys, and that sort of kicked off everything.
So when you were coming into the country, I believe you were actually quarantined for a few days. You just got out yesterday. So what is the quarantine situation like at the moment in this country when you're coming in?
It's not that bad, to be honest. It's 5 days, self-quarantine. And I had to really look online to see if it was even needed. But basically, my travel agent told me. I said, are you sure? Nobody told me that I have to quarantine. He's like, yeah, you might as well do it. I said, fine. I'm a public figure. If I get seen in the streets, I'll probably get in trouble. But 5 days self-quarantine, that's it. And then I have to take a PCR, not PCR. I had to come in with a negative PCR test, which is standard now. Within 72 hours. And then I had to take a test to be released. After quarantine, you take a free test that they gave me here. They put it down your throat, and then they take the same swab and they put it up your nose. It was disgusting. I did not know they were going to do that to me. I would have just said no. But whatever, they didn't take my brain tissue or anything. It was gross, but it was like 5 minutes and it was free.
It must be really annoying considering you're not here for that long, and so that's 5 days down the tube. That's not small. It's not as bad as the 2 weeks it used to be, but that's got to be really irritating.
I mean, it's annoying, especially because I'm coming with a negative PCR test. It's like, why do the test then if I'm only going to have to wait 5 more days and then do another test? And then it's not like you take the test and then you wait for negative results. What if I had COVID? They just let me walk free. No instructions. Obviously, this is just to please the higher powers. This is to funnel more money into all of these things. They had to set up all the tents and all this stuff, and it's ridiculous. And they're not even really taking it that seriously. They give you more masks and they're like hand sanitizer. Someone's making billions off of this, not just the vaccine companies, but the hand sanitizer, the mask suppliers, They're all in China, though. That's the funny thing. They gave us the virus, and now they're giving us the solution.
Well, I mean, 90% of people in Ireland now are fully vaccinated.
90?
90%.
Oh
So,
my
and then I don't know how many people have had like one dose and they're waiting on their second one. There's probably a little bit more.
Yeah.
So we're getting to the point where everyone who wants it has gotten it, more or less, with maybe a few exceptions. Within the next couple of weeks or months, I'd say we will reach 100%. And then the people who are left are people who either can't take it or just won't take it. And so you think, at that point, what are we worried about? You know, people have made calculated risks. They've decided, you know what, I'm willing to get this. I'm not worried about it for whatever personal reasons they have. And so do we really need all of this nonsense? When it comes to illegal immigration, is your father an immigrant, or what's your kind of background, I suppose?
Yeah, this is the question I've been getting all my life, right? What are you? You posed it very politely, though. Most people say, what are you? And then now, though, they tell me what I am and what I have to believe. But my dad is Italian and Argentinian. My grandpa are immigrants. And my grandpa and grandma, they're immigrants from Italy and Argentina. And then my mom's side, she's Black American. So, and a little bit of Choctaw, Native American. So I'm this melting pot. And growing up, I was always told I'm not Black enough to identify as Black. I used to say, well, tell that to my lips and my booty and my hair, you know, like, okay, fine. But of course, I'm not white enough to identify as white, which no one wants to be now, though, in America. Like, nobody's white. Everybody's mixed something. You know, they're like going to tell you 10 different mixes. I'm like, it's okay just to be white. You know, we're trying to erase culture and cancel this culture in favor of this other culture, which I am against no matter what. I think it's racist no matter what, you know, you want to put on it.
Well, I mean, in this country, the Taoiseach, who's like our prime minister, basically, he's now, it's a kind of a complicated mix. We've got like three parties in power, and so they're kind of cycling between leadership. It's kind of messy. But at the time, this guy, Leo Varadkar, who's Irish Indian, he said that the civil service is too white and that we need to change that. And this, in any other country, I feel like that would have been really controversial, but it almost just got no media attention and nobody noticed it unless you are in like a very specific circle. And I was just thinking, imagine saying that about any other ethnic group.
Yeah, fill that in. It's too Indian, it's too Black, it's too Asian. Like anything you say is too something is bad.
Absolutely.
It's racism, it's prejudice. But when you say white, oh yeah, you're right, it's too white. Let's take a few white people out and put in some people of color. How is that not racist?
I mean, now we have that his same political party, Fine Gael, they just announced that they want to make it that 40% of all the directors on boards of companies have to be women. And this is we have quotas for politics where parties have, you know, they're encouraged to run a certain amount of people from various demographics in society. So what do you think of that as somebody who probably fits into a lot of those vulnerable demographics? Do you think that that's appropriate?
I'm going to tell you something, Ben. I'm very lucky and very blessed that God created me in this body in this time, because I can say a lot of things. I can get away with a lot that my white friends cannot, because I can say, wait a second, woke victimhood, wasn't that created for me? A woman of color, a female, you know, in the arts industry, you know, didn't come from vast amounts of money, you know, didn't go to some bougie college, didn't go to college. So all of these little categories I can speak out against because they automatically assume I'm going to be pro all of these acronyms and all these things, but I am against it, because the more you try to force equality, the less equal things are. You can't say 40% have to be this gender. That's sexist. You have to identify people for their merits, for their values, for what work they bring to the table. I mean, absolutely, I think you should try to get more women or men in areas where maybe they're not normally there. I do believe somewhat in this diversity, equality approach, somewhat. But it's been taken to such an extreme measure that it's now the opposite of what it was meant to do. You're now excluding people.
Because I mean, even if you support it, we can all agree that, you know, there's a difference between encouraging people maybe and saying, hey, you should maybe consider this option, as opposed to having a legal mandate and certain quota that you have to hit. Like that, that's when it starts to get extremely dicey.
That's ridiculous. It should never be legal. Like you said, it should be encouragement. It should be a conversation. You know, mothers tell your daughters they can do any job. Fathers tell your sons they can do any job they want. They can have kids and raise kids if they want. It's okay to be a stay-at-home dad. It's okay to be a working mom. Raise your families the way you want to see your kids grow up. Don't rely on the government to tell you what to do. It's a nanny state. You know, I mean, Europe is prone to this. You guys,
well, I think it's worse over here than it is in the US.
We're catching up, though.
Yeah, unfortunately, under Uncle Joe, I think that might kick off.
Beijing Biden.
This is the thing that a lot of people, I think, almost want the government to micromanage their lives. And I don't think we've seen that any clearer than with all of this COVID stuff, where the idea of personal responsibility has just flown completely out the window. Idea that, look, if you're scared of COVID, you can live in the basement, you can order Uber Eats for the rest of your life, that's your prerogative. But it's not the job of the government to control the whole of society and put us all under house arrest and so on. But that concept is just foreign to people now. The idea is, no, I have to be told what to do. My neighbors have to be told what to do, because where would we be without our, the strong arm of the state regulating all of our lives every minute of every day?
Exactly. It's disgusting because, we've taken away parenthood, right? We've taken away families. We've destroyed families. Like, fathers are now weak because they've destroyed masculinity. It's now toxic to be a man. It's now oppressive to compliment a woman. It's now, the patriarchy, to have a job and support your family, and be proud that you're a man. So they've destroyed the male species. Women are angrier than ever. Women are getting divorced more than ever. Women are more unhappy than ever. They're choosing to have kids later in life. And then when they want to have kids, they think, oh, well, I am woman, hear me roar. Oh, wow, I have this biological clock. Now I've got to get my eggs frozen. Now I've got to, all of these things come from the center that we've destroyed, which is the God-ordained family unit. Kids are more confused than ever, we see it online. So now all of this has become a dismantling of what was supposed to hold up a community. So who has to step in and save the day? The government, Big Brother. It was planned from the beginning.
Obviously, you said at the beginning you're pro-life. Yes. And one of the big pieces of news that's after happening in the pro-life world is the Texas abortion ruling. I wonder if you want to talk a little bit about that.
I'm proud of Texas. I am so proud of Texas. In a world where everybody's telling you that they're just fetuses, they're not babies, they're not lives, Texas is saying no. Governor Abbott is standing up to the oppression, and he is taking some serious fire, some serious heat. Hollywood is doing what they always do, what they did with Georgia when Georgia introduced the heartbeat bill, is they're saying, oh, well, we're not going to put films there. We're going to deny people to come over there. We're not going to spend money in your state. And Texas doesn't care. Texas is its own thing. Try saying no to the import of, or the export of what Texas provides. Power to most of the country and oil to most of the country. So Texas is its own, basically, country in the middle of the United States. So they're fine. So I think that Florida is going to follow suit. Florida is the other state with a backbone. Basically, the United States is held together by Texas and Florida right now. Two very red, very proudly pro-life Christian states, which I'm happy.
Do you think there's any correlation there between the number of Hispanics in both of those states? Latino people tend to be very family-oriented, Catholic, and so on and so forth. So is there probably a link there, I would say?
I think there is a big link there. I think it's also where people still have a backbone, where church is not a dirty word, where family is not a dirty word. I think that I know that woke culture, like the leftism culture in America, is going to wake up to a rude awakening, because we now have more proudly pro-life kids out there than I've ever seen. Like Generation Z is more pro-life than millennials, than our generation, right? These young kids are on TikTok.
I'm a Zoomer, I'm 24.
Oh my God, you're not oh shoot.
I made the cutoff, I think, by 1 year. I looked it up, yeah. I wanted to try and grab, because I heard, Gen Z is supposed to be this super conservative in the scheme of things, the first one that's more conservative than their parents. Yeah. And so I get to ride that wave.
So you're a Gen Zer. Well, I'm a millennial. And my generation is messed up. Your generation's coming to save the day. So
well, you guys laid the groundwork, so it's got to be incremental. I think it's generational. It won't happen overnight, any kind of significant change.
So Ben Franklin actually developed what a generation is in the United States, and it's 19 years. So every 19 years, we have hope for change. And I do see a vast difference than 20 years ago. I mean, you see woke culture that has absolutely taken over the media. You see the Cardi B's lifted up as feminism, female power. But you also see this generation where they say, no, I actually reject that. And I see that things are going to be changing. Pro-life is on the forefront of being pro-woman. I've always said that. I've worn dresses to the Grammys that say that. I've been very vocal about my story being a pro-life woman, and I will continue to fight for the world to be pro-life, because this is not a political issue. This is a human issue. These are human babies we're talking about. This is very much evil versus good.
What made you pro-life?
Well, when I was around 19 years old, I found myself pregnant. And I was in a very rough situation, and I was encouraged to get an abortion by the nurse, by the people around me. It was the hardest thing I've ever had to decide. But I prayed, and I knew that this was a child growing inside me. And even though I knew I could not raise this child, I was broke, I was destitute, it was a terrible relationship I was in. I knew that this little girl deserved to live. And so I made the decision to be pro-life and to carry her to term and adopt her out. So I actually have a daughter that I adopted out, and she calls me Mama Joy to this day. I know her. And it's crazy to think that this is someone's life I could have destroyed, easily from pressures around me. So that is the thing that really secured being pro-life in my universe for me. But before that, I'm raised Christian. I'm a Christian woman. And I was raised that this is a life, that God knit us together in our mother's womb, and that you don't just destroy that life because it's inconvenient or because someone says it's just a fetus. We know what's right and wrong as human beings. I believe each and every person was given that personal responsibility. So this destruction of life is terrible on so many fronts. It's terrible for women mainly because we're being told it's empowerment. It's terrible for the child who has no choice in the matter. It's terrible for men who are told they don't matter, that they weren't a part of this creation, even though it takes two. In every single pregnancy, 100% of the time, it took two to create that. So I'm passionately pro-life. I have that personal story, and I have never regretted that.
What do you think of the fact that the US and many other countries are kind of coming out of their abortion phase, it seems? The pro-life movement is going from strength to strength, and yet here, just a couple of years ago, we're beginning to enter ours with the 8th Amendment referendum and the fact that, I think it's over 6,000 babies just in the last couple of years, the figures that we have available from the official sources. We've had over 6,600 abortions. And so what do you think of the fact that the US is moving out of its abortion phase just as Ireland moves into its?
I think that it's going to get worse before it gets better. You look at the US, we've been fighting this for over 50 years, right? I think it's been 50 years. Roe versus Wade is in the 70s, and 40-something years. And it gets very ugly because people want to defend the indefensible because they know they've messed up. You have a lot of people who have this personal, the personal agenda. If a woman gets raped, gets abused, the only proof of that, if she's pregnant, is that baby. So of course there's going to be people who are like, yeah, abortion, women's rights, yeah, let's do that. Get rid of that. It's just a fetus, because it serves their interests, their evil interests. And then you have young girls who women have told them, no, don't have babies. Babies are the death of you. You need to go have a career, do your best, live your best life, have your hot girl summer, and all this stuff that women are told. Yet that's not what their mothers told them. So you see this wanting to change things by eradicating something that you cannot eradicate. You cannot destroy life in order to cancel out a bad decision, you should say. I'm kind of dancing around the topic, but really what I want to say is you don't do an evil action. You don't kill a human life in order to make yourself feel better. If you're pregnant, you're pregnant. That's a life. It's not, okay, well, let's pretend like it's not a life and then it's all going to go away. And I tell young girls that all the time. I work with many pro-life charities. I've told my story around the country, my country, but also around the world. I was in the UK in 2018 trying to fight this, terrible, terrible vote that happened. But I do believe that in all of this evilness, there will be a light, and that will be the warriors that are fighting for the freedom of unborn lives, for the freedom of the mothers that need to be told it's okay to be a mom, the fathers to be told you're also a part of this. And the more we step up, the more the future generation, even in just a few years, will see that and say, well, they're outspoken, I should be outspoken.
Do you think being a black conservative is harder than being a white conservative? Do you think it has kind of unique challenges in a way?
Yes, absolutely. And not for the reason most people would think. It's because other black people attack me for being a conservative, as if it's against my race or, almost against my religion. When, if you look at studies, most black Americans are Christians, and most black people around the world are religious. Christians or Catholics, even in other religions, they're pro-life. But media says you have to be like your favorite rapper or your favorite actor who had an abortion on their way to an Oscar and it's okay. That's 1 in a billion people who did that, who it worked out for them, so they say, and they're getting paid to say that. What about all the millions of lives that are lost, destroyed? What about the fact that there's more black babies being aborted in New York City now than being born? I mean, they don't talk about this on the media. It's a genocide. But within black culture, being a conservative, even though it's very pro-black in the community, you get blasted. I get blasted by black and Latinos as well. I get called racist. I've gotten called more racist slurs coming out for Trump, coming out for conservative values than ever before. And this is not by white people. This is by people of color.
Then you've spoken against Black Lives Matter in the past. And
time.
we actually have Black Lives Matter in Ireland, a faction of that movement or whatever. There were big protests outside the US Embassy around the time of George Floyd and so on. And a lot of people were thinking, well, what relevance does that have here? I mean, whatever about the US, and I mean, there's certain baggage there, of course, but I don't think Ireland, I'm not even aware of a single unarmed person being shot by police. So what do you think of the fact that this is such a universal movement that's spreading to every Western country?
It's just like feminism. It's just like any of these movements, which are just all about the drama. Honestly, I'm going to be point blank and say that. It's about the drama. Okay, there's unarmed black people that were shot in the US. Like you said, there's baggage in the US. Okay, yes, we have that. I was just in South Africa. Talk about baggage. Apartheid happened within our lifetime. And they've gotten through it a lot more than the United States, which has been like 60 years, right? So it's a cultural thing. And it's very much planned by the powers that be to control people, to keep people fearful, to keep people masked, scared, shouting in the streets. Oh my gosh, they're killing black people everywhere. And you look at Ireland, you guys have literally never enslaved anyone.
We were colonized and sent as indentured servants to the Caribbean.
Irish people have been considered, dogs in many cultures, including America. No Jews, no blacks, no Irish, right? There'd be signs. So historically, Irish people are on the same fight. So why would I say, oh, you're white, so you need to bow down and apologize for what you've done? You haven't done anything. Your ancestors haven't done anything. This is ridiculous. It's a bunch of people who were never slaves being mad at people who never owned any slaves. That's Black Lives Matter to a T.
This is the thing. There's so many people in this country, some of whom are alive today, who grew up at a time when there was no electricity in their village, people in crippling poverty. You'd have 11, 12 kids living in a couple of rooms in a tiny hut, like a step above homelessness.
No, but why didn't they use their white privilege?
Of course, this is the thing. You see, you guys are silly. You should have just reminded everybody, oh yeah, wait a minute, I'm white. And
white card.
Exactly. They just must not have got it in the post. That was the problem.
Right.
So then, circling back to your career and Hollywood and so on and so forth, are there a lot of closeted conservative people in Hollywood? Obviously, I don't expect you to name names, but people who on the down low have come to you and said, actually, I agree.
Big time. Oh, I am the number one person people come to. I mean, I have it under lock and key, but I know big time names, people you would least assume who are conservatives and who are going, thank you so much for what you do. I mean, when I was at the Grammys wearing my Trump dress, wearing my pro-life dress, I would get people that would come up to me secretly, people that shocked me. And we sort of had this little wink and they were like, I love your dress. very like, shh, oh, I don't want to get fired, I don't want to get killed. But
I heard
love
you
it.
say in an interview before that when you made the reveal with the dress, the media were like whooping and cheering, probably because they knew it was a big story.
They knew it was a big payday.
But still, I mean, that's a crazy reaction considering
Yeah.
the hostility towards Trump.
It's true. The media, they play with this. To them, it's just a game, unfortunately, but people's lives are at stake here. I mean, people get beat up for supporting Trump, for supporting conservative values. People in the U.S., friends of mine, have gotten punched in the face for wearing MAGA hats, the red hats. There is no freedom of speech. I spoke to Congress not too long ago about diversity in media. They called me in with a bunch of other actors, producers, a very big deal. This is a Democrat-led, Congress session, and I said, listen, yes, we do need diversity. I do agree. I like to see different colors represented. I'm here in Dublin. This is very international. I see different colors everywhere. I love big cities, London, New York. This is awesome. But what about diversity of thought? You don't hire a bunch of people of different hues, yet they have the same views. That's not diversity. That's just a stencil. That's just a cookie cutter thing to make you feel better. And I said these things in front of Congress. I mean, it made me a lot of enemies, more enemies than usual. But I do believe that's what's wrong with Hollywood. That's what's wrong with the media. So of course they hooted and hollered when I wore a Trump dress. They're like, wow, something different. Not another, feminist, willowy feminist going, oh my gosh, it's so bad, the patriarchy. Guns are so bad. Meanwhile, they have armed guards and walls. Walls are so bad. Oh my God, save the immigrants. Anyways.
What do you think of the fact that the arts have been so totally consumed by liberalism? When you think historically of great works of art like the Pieta and so on, these were mostly created by devoutly Christian people who today, not only would they be conservative, they'd probably be considered far right today if you think about it. But these arts cathedrals and so on, and now art, it seems like, be it music or visual arts, has just been totally consumed by radical liberal, modernist type people. What do you think is going on there, and what do you think of that?
I mean, Ben, this isn't an accident. This is done on purpose. The arts were infiltrated by radical liberals. Radical liberals said, who are the mouthpieces of culture? Artists. Artists communicate. We are the communicators to the rest of the world. A painting, a song, a dance, a fashion communicates without language. And so if you train artists, which, by the way, politically, many kings and, people throughout history have provided financial, means to artists, and then they get the art, or they get to have the artist around them. So this has sort of been something throughout history, but it's never been weaponized so evilly, I think, until now, or at least now we can see it very clearly. We have benefactors who have weaponized artists by giving them money, giving them a platform. You see people like Lady Gaga, you see people, Jennifer Lopez and Lady Gaga sang at Joe Biden's inauguration. Do they care that he's the president? Do they support anything he stands for? Of course not. They're picking up a paycheck. They'll tell you all day Jennifer Lopez spoke Spanish there, and she's like, oh, viva la revolucion, or whatever, she doesn't even know what she's saying. It's so disgusting to me because people follow these artists thinking like, oh, it's coming from them. Lady Gaga's such a freedom fighter. She loves the LGBT. She's picking up a fat paycheck. They're not really getting vaccinated. They're just getting paid. I'm sure they have their own means. They're like, no, I'm not going to take that. But yeah, get vaccinated. This is awesome to all my fans. Do what I say. Did you
see that video of James Corden and Ariana Grande dancing and singing that song about how great it is to get vaccinated and singing the praises of Tony Fauci from the rooftops?
Oh my gosh. He's like the Twilight guy now. It's like they put him into social media and the social everything. It's like this Tumblr generation that's like, oh, it's so cute. Hashtag this. They put music. It's all owned and operated by extreme leftists, extreme liberals who are doing this on purpose. And they all get together. If you want to talk about the cabal, you want to talk about evil rooms of people, it's not really that nefarious. It's very out in the open. Yeah. They're like, yeah, my wife is at CNN and I'm here at Warner Brothers and my cousin works over there, and they all work together and operate. And this is why being a conservative these days, no matter where you're from, Ireland, America, wherever, is radical. You are going against the norm, what is brainwashing you to believe. And you are saying, no, I'm going to stand up for values and integrity. And that's what I do. And that's what I encourage my Joy Tribe. That's what I encourage everybody to do. And I have a target on my back. I know that and I embrace it. I really don't care anymore. They have tried to cancel me so many times. They can't.
Well, you're Teflon, and I think you'll be fine. Well, thank you so much, Joy. Really appreciate your time.
Absolutely. It's been a pleasure.